On September the 20th, Minister Sean Fraser unveiled his latest strategy to expand transitions to permanent residence for foreign workers and international students in Canada. Yes, there is a lot of fluff in the final report that he unveiled, and it's mostly a rehashing of what has already been said. However, if you take the time to read carefully and read between the lines, you'll find there are a few things you had better pay close attention to, because it wasn't all fluff. Here's my top 6 list of key takeaways from the minister's plan. Number 1, work experience in key sectors will be increasingly important. It's hard to believe that in the first quarter of 2022, Canadian employers were actively seeking to fill 957,500 vacant positions, with over 58% of them requiring less than high school education. Labor shortages in Canada are only going to get worse. The minister clearly outlined the industries on his hit list. If you have work experience that falls into one of the following industries, you're going to have a greater likelihood of being included in one of the express entry knock targeted draws that we're expecting in the spring. What are those industries? Health, hospitality, transportation, trades and resources. Yep, even IT. Now, of course, that's not terribly surprising to everyone. Also on the list is engineering and agri-food, which of course brings with it agriculture, and construction, which is one that we have traditionally not seen because there's always been Canadians to do those jobs. Well, not anymore. Rounding up the last 2 are professional services and scientific and technical services. Second takeaway, job offers from Canadian employers will be much more plentiful and essential. As the Canadian economy continues to heat up and unemployment levels continue to drop, the opportunities to land a coveted job offer from a Canadian employer will never be better in the coming months and years. These job offers will be more readily available in the targeted industries identified in my takeaway number 1. There's a specific reason the minister identified these industries. This is where labor shortages are projected for not only the immediate needs of Canadian employers, but the medium to long-term economic priorities of the country as well. One thing is clear from the minister's report. Those seeking to immigrate to Canada without some form of Canadian work experience are going to have a steep hill to climb. IRCC has made it very clear that priority will be given to selecting new PRs from the ranks of temporary residents, primarily foreign workers. The report highlights that immigrants with previous temporary Canadian work experience generally have better labor market integration and are unlikely to experience the same degree of difficulty with the transferability of their human capital. So, what does this mean for aspiring express entry applicants? Gone are the days where human capital alone will be enough to secure an ITA. The report confirms that if you want to immigrate to Canada, you pretty much have 2 options. 1, study in Canada, obtain a postgrad work permit, and then apply for PR. Or 2, secure a job offer from a Canadian employer, obtain that work permit, and after gaining that Canadian work experience, apply for PR. However, all is not lost for the FSW applicant with no Canadian experience. Permanent LMIA-based job offers and French language ability can level the playing field somewhat. Further, it's still possible for Outland FSW applicants to win the lottery in future express entry targeted draws that land on knock codes for which that candidate has experience in one of those targeted industries. Number 3, express entry is opening its doors to low-skilled work experience in Canada. In the past, skilled workers, that's skill level 0, A, and B, were the only type of worker truly valued within the federal economic PR programs. Unless low and semi-skilled workers could find a pathway through the various PNP programs, they were simply left out in the dark. That is, until the pandemic arrived. The pandemic caused a massive shift in focus for IRCC. Attention has now shifted to the actual needs of our labor market, with less emphasis on arbitrary skill level. The creation of the TR to PR pathway in 2021 was just the beginning of what is to come. The minister makes it clear that the next version of Express Entry, likely to come in the spring of 2023, will include more opportunities for workers at all skill levels. He's not talking necessarily about a new TR to PR pathway, although this could still be a possibility. He is specifically addressing changes to the Express Entry selection process. This should give hope to some low-skilled workers in Canada, but remember, the minister is likely referring to the reclassification of some occupations within the new tier system, NOC 2021, set to launch in November of this year. And don't forget that priority will still be placed on those industries in takeaway number 1. Number 4, rural Canada is on the rise. After the past few years, we've seen the annual levels plans for economic immigration rise to numbers never seen before. When it comes to increased numbers, the winners have been the PNPs, rural communities, and now municipalities. IRCC recognizes that individual provinces and communities and municipalities are best suited to determine their respective labor needs. As such, programs such as the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot Program are likely to see the pilot label dropped, with them becoming permanent programs, just as occurred recently with the Atlantic Immigration Program. Well, nestled within the minister's plan is once again a reference to a new municipal nominee program, which is currently in development. The program was originally announced way back in 2019. It's uncertain to what extent this program will really differ from the RNIP and various PNP-based rural and community programs. However, one message is clear. Candidates willing to settle outside the major metropolitan centers in Canada will have greater chances for PR than those choosing to live in the larger centers. Number 5, French language ability has never been more important. To fully appreciate the importance of this statement, all you have to do is look at the impact of French language ability on the Express Entry draws. An extra 50 or more CRS bonus points for French language ability has been an absolute game changer for FSW candidates outside of Canada looking to break into the highly competitive, no program specified draws dominated by the foreign workers in Canada. So if you have even the slightest ability to communicate in French, start brushing up. The sooner your French improves, the sooner you just might book your ticket to Canada. For some time now, we have known that IRCC is determined to meet the 4.4% French-speaking target by 2023. In order to meet this goal, Francophone minority communities outside of Quebec are now clearly on the radar. If you have French language ability and are exploring options for study or work in Canada, Quebec does not need to be your first option. In fact, you may find that you have more opportunities for permanent residence in Canada as a French speaker outside of Quebec because of IRCC's mandate. Number 6, international students must be strategic about where they're studying in Canada. Tucked away quietly within the report was an acknowledgement of a lack of diversity within the ranks of our international student populations. IRCC admitted that they are looking for ways to diversify source countries for the international student program. This is code for, we are going to start approving less study permits from India and China and more from other countries. As such, more than ever before, students need to be strategic with their school selection. Don't just go to whatever school is the cheapest and easiest to gain admission. And for goodness sake, do not study in one-year programs unless you intend to stack that program with a second one-year program while you're in Canada. You need the 2 years of study to maximize your post-grad work permit to 3 years, an almost essential necessity in today's competitive PR landscape. Finally, pay attention to where your school is located and what you are choosing to study. IRCC has made it clear that they want students to choose programs of study outside of the major urban centers. I can't help but think that IRCC will bake this little ingredient into their advanced analytics when adjudicating study permit applications. Obviously, there are other factors at play. However, if IRCC says they're going to, quote, incentivize students to look beyond major urban centers when choosing a program of study, I listen. You should listen too. When my clients ask me for advice on where they should study in Canada, I place significant emphasis on geography. With the volatility in PR programs, I want my clients to have the greatest number of PR options available to them when choosing a school. With the over 49% of total international students headed to Ontario, guess where I advise my clients not to go? A careful analysis of the future PR options in a potential province of destination can go a long way to avoiding heartache when trying to compete with the thousands of other students for limited PNP spots. Further, programs like the Atlantic Immigration Program can add another layer of incentive in choosing to study in Atlantic Canada versus the most common destinations of Ontario, BC, and Quebec. Pretty much every PNP tends to have some form of incentive baked into their programs for students who choose to study in their province and stick around as permanent residents. The key for you is to determine which provinces have the best programs and which have the least number of grads competing for those positions following completion of studies and any work experience requirements. Further, when choosing a program, you must pay attention to the industry in which your program is situated. If you want to increase your chances of securing PR in Canada, you'd be well advised to choose a program within one of the IRCC priority industries that I've already talked about in my takeaway number 1. Rather than simply choosing a program in business management or public administration, broaden your horizons and try to find a program that not only makes sense for the education plan in your study permit application, but a program that also aligns with where the jobs can be found in Canada following graduation. Now, although the minister's report was mostly filled with stuff we already knew, sometimes it doesn't hurt to be reminded once again that work experience in Canada is critical to future PR success. And sometimes reading between the lines can reveal critical insight into what the future holds for Canadian immigration in the short and long term. If you found this information helpful, please subscribe to our channel and make sure to head over to our immigration law firm website, www.holthelaw.com, and check out all the other information and book a consult with one of our experienced immigration lawyers. Take care.